Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Gunashri Mataji. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye nashtapraeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavatir uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji's Mataji's. Welcome to discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam as part of the Bhakti Vaibhav session. So today we'll be starting with Canto 1, Chapter 13, chapter entitled Dhritarashtra Quits Home. So as we discussed in our earlier discussions, this first canto is divided into various sections for understanding. First part being the 6 primary questions by the sages of Naimisharanya and answers by Suta Goswami to those 6 questions. Second section we saw history of Srimad Bhagavatam in terms of the primary speaker, the primary hearer of Srimad Bhagavatam, and how did Srimad Bhagavatam advent in terms of Vyasadev's discontentment within the heart and subsequent analysis of that discontentment and instruction by Srila Narada Muni. And in the third portion that we started last time, we are discussing the birth, activities, and glorious passing away of Maharaj Parikshit. So specifically, last chapter we discussed about Maharaj Parikshit. And one thing, if we have observed carefully, that Srimad Bhagavatam description is not restricted by Shukadev Goswami or Suta Goswami just in a box format to answer the questions by the sages. There is a spontaneity that is involved. Say, for example, we saw last time Suta Goswami, while describing while answering the questions by the sages in terms of the birth of Maharaj Parikshit, he went into trance, describing the interactions of Lord Krishna with his pure devotees, including Queen Kunti, including Uttara, including Bhishmadev, Yudhishthir Maharaj, and so on and so forth. All other members of the Pandava family, as well as Kuru family overall, and Lord Krishna's reception in Dwarka. So similarly, when last chapter we were discussing specifically about the birth of Maharaj Parikshit, there is also a significant time given by Suta Goswami to describe the glorious administration and rule of Maharaj Yudhishthir, the grandfather of Maharaj Parikshit. So all these points are ultimately meant to drive us to the path of pure devotional service through the example and lives of so many great personalities. What is there for us to gain? So in our study of Srimad Bhagavatam, let us not restrict ourselves to the topic, but more than that, appreciate the flow in which the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, the speakers of Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically Maharaj Parikshit and Suta Goswami, are driving those explanations on those topics. So, like in the section on the birth of Maharaj Parikshit, the glorious administration of Maharaj Yudhishthir is also stressed. Similarly, today's chapter, although it is entitled Dhritarashtra Quits Home, as we will see in during the discussion of the verses, there is a great emphasis given on the life and glorious qualities of Vidura, the younger brother of Maharaj Dhritarashtra. So let's delve deep into details of these subject matters so that we are really able to grasp as much as possible what Suta Goswami, what Shukadev Goswami are trying to explain through. So birth, activities, and the glorious deliverance of Maharaj Parikshit that we are going to discuss in section 3 of Canto 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam. So where does Dhritarashtra quitting home fits into? Last chapter after Maharaj Parikshit's birth has been described by Suta Goswami. Now he is gradually taking the audience to the activities in the life of Maharaj Parikshit, what all different activities he performed. And the background to that is the backdrop to that is deliverance of Dhritarashtra by Vidura, instructions by Vidura to Dhritarashtra, and subsequent lamentation of King Yudhishthir, and subsequent dispelling of that lamentation by Narada Muni to King Yudhishthir. And in all this happening, what is there for us to learn from all these episodes? So don't get too intrigued or confused in terms of sequence of one pastime mentioned while answering another question. More important than sequence is what is there for us to learn from these dialogues, learn from these descriptions. So before we proceed, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, is there any question in terms of our last week's discussion, last section's discussion, and today's, before we begin today? Hare Krishna. Are we on the same page how the flow is progressing? Is it too confusing? Prabhuji's, Mataji's, Hare Krishna.
No problem.
Okay, fine. Yeah, so link between chapter 12 and 13. In chapter 12, the glorious birth of Maharaj Parikshit is described, and the events leading to various glorious activities of Maharaj Parikshit. The description of the life and activities of Maharaj Parikshit, the background to those activities is being discussed in terms of Vidura's instructions to Dhritarashtra and subsequent instructions by Narada Muni to Yudhishthir Maharaj after Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Vidura quit home without any formal prior notice as such to Yudhishthir Maharaj. And Yudhishthir Maharaj, the great soul that he is, just similar to after the battle of Kurukshetra, where he took all the blame upon himself for the massacre of so many Kshatriyas. Similarly, he also considers himself guilty that probably he did not take good care of his uncle uh, Maharaj Dhritarashtra and aunt Gandhari. Maybe because of that, they have left home. So Narada Muni dispels this illusion and subsequently pacifies Yudhishthir Maharaj. So, and we will discuss about the glorious birth and characteristics of Vidura. And while discussing this, some of the references we will also make to Vidura's conversation with Maitreya, which is majorly the description for the reminder of Srimad Bhagavatam, that particular questions asked by Vidura and answers to those questions by Maitreya Maharshi. So we'll come to that. So let us start with the text as such. And when I was hearing classes by a few senior devotees explaining this particular chapter, and also specifically teaching this chapter in context of Bhakti Vaibhav, quite a few of the speakers have directly gone through the important verses, which is normal method followed. But after going through Srila Prabhupada's purport, I felt that for our context, we will go through a bit more into some of these verses which have been skipped in general, so as to learn from the lives of these great personalities. So it might take an hour or so extra, but it is worth going through this. Okay. So please have your patience, because purports are long, but they are very, very important. Srila Prabhupada's purports. All right. Any devotee would like to recite the verse? Prabhuji's Mataji. Jagadananda Murari Prabhu, Ishwari Murari Priya Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Suta uvacha
Suta Uvacha
vidurastirthayatrayam
Vidurastirthayatrayam
Maitreyad atmano gatim
Maitreyad Atmanogatim
Nyatva gadastinapuram
Nyatva Gadastinapuram
Dayavapta vivitsitaha Translation.
Yeah.
Sri Suta Goswami said, while traveling on pilgrimage, Vidura received knowledge of the destination of the self from the great sage Maitreya and then returned to Hastinapura. He became as well versed in the subject as he desired.
Thank you. Before we start with the purport, the important word in this verse is Atmano Gatim. So the verse gives a background behind the arrival of Vidura in Hastinapur, that before coming to Hastinapur, especially during the battle of Kurukshetra, Vidura had gone on pilgrimage. And we know the background for Vidura leaving home to go to pilgrimage. What was the background? Why did Vidura leave home, quit home?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Bipin Vilas. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, because it was insulted by Duryodhana badly. And
Yes.
yeah,
Vidura was insulted by Duryodhana, and Dhritarashtra, being elder brother of Vidura, who Vidura was quite attached to, he stayed quiet. He did not defend his younger brother from the onslaught, from the insulting words of Duryodhana, because of Dhritarashtra's blind attachment to his sons. And Vidura, it is mentioned that he just left his bow and arrow at the entrance to the palace and quit immediately. He did not want to witness any further what was going to happen, because neither was his brother attentive to what good counsel Vidura was giving, nor was his brother attentive to protecting the dignity and respect of his brother. So Vidura decided to quit. But it is explained that during this 18 days period of the Battle of Kurukshetra, when Vidura was on a pilgrimage, not just 18 days, the Battle of Kurukshetra was over, and subsequently all these other events, including Lord Krishna residing in Hastinapur for some more time at the request of Yudhishthir Maharaj, Lord Krishna protecting the child within the womb of Uttara, subsequently taking the Pandavas to the site where Bhishmadev was departing, and subsequent instructions by Bhishma to Pandavas and all the sages, and subsequent departure of Lord Krishna from Hastinapur to Dwarka. All these events happened, and it is explained more in detail in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that Lord Krishna, understanding that he has fulfilled his mission, why he appeared in this world, he decided to conclude his pastime. And the description is quite long in terms of how he wound up the pastime, including the uh, annihilation of all the Yadava race. And subsequently, just before his departure, Lord Krishna giving his audience primarily to his pure devotee and constant companion Uddhava, and Maitreya Maharshi being present at that particular spot, and subsequently the meeting between Vidura and Maitreya Maharshi, where Maitreya Maharshi narrated the message of Lord Krishna to Vidura and subsequently answered the inquiries by Vidura about Lord Krishna's position. So we will see some of these activities further more into detail, but this is the background. So it is explained in this conversation between Maitreya Maharshi and Vidura. Vidura understood Atmanogatim. Atmanogatim, Srila Prabhupada translates as the ultimate goal of the ultimate destination of the soul. Where is that word? Atmana Gatim, of the self, and Gatim means destination. Ultimate destination. What is the ultimate destination for a soul and how it is to be reached? Vidura gained this science of pure devotional service from Maitreya Maharshi. And now he has returned to Hastinapur for a very specific purpose. He did not return to Hastinapur to be again engaged in household affairs. He came to Hastinapur for a very specific purpose in order to deliver his dear brother Dhritarashtra and Dhritarashtra's wife Gandhari. So we'll go further into detail. Ishwari Murari Priya Mataji, please continue.
Hare Krishna. Vidura, one of the prominent figures in the history of Mahabharata. He was conceived by Vyasadeva in the womb of the great servant of Ambika, mother of Maharaja Pandu. He is the incarnation of Yamaraj. Being cursed by Manduka Muni, he was to become a Shudra. The story is narrated as follows.
Yeah, thank you. So before we proceed into detail, some background on this. We see that we have discussed the background earlier during the topic of Bhishmadev, that how Bhishmadev's father, Shantanu Maharaj, he he was attracted to the beauty of Satyavati and wanted to marry Satyavati, and then subsequently we see the father of Satyavati and Satyavati herself put a reservation in front of Maharaj Shantanu that Satyavati's own children should inherit the kingdom. And Bhishmadev, Not even being asked by his father in order to fulfill the desire of his father, he took the great vow of lifelong celibacy. For a Kshatriya, it is considered as a very, very difficult vow. And that's how, because of the great vow, he came to be known as Bhishma, one who has taken a very severe vow. And subsequently, as the fate would have it, we see that the half brother of Bhishma Dev, Vichitra Virya, he passes away untimely. Basically, he is not uh, fully competent to have children in the womb of his wife. And subsequently, Bhishmadev himself being requested by Satyavati, considering the special circumstances, to beget children uh, in the wife of in the wombs of the wives of Vichitravirya, Ambika and Ambalika. But Bhishmadev sticking to his wife, and subsequently Satyavati invoking the favor of her son from the earlier union with Parashar Muni, Srila Vyasadev, to beget children in the womb of the wives of Vichitra Virya. Is it too confusing, Prabhuji's, Mataji's? Are you all with me? Like in terms of these names that I am taking, is it too fast?
No, Prabhuji.
We are still good?
Yeah.
Yes,
From
Prabhu.
other devotees, Murli Prabhu, are you still with me, Prabhuji? Murli Prabhu, other devotees, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Okay.
Prabhu.
Prabhuji, can you repeat it, please?
Okay. So let me just put it on a notepad. So Maharaj Shantanu, okay, his children are Devavrata, who later on became known as Bhishma, born out of Ganges, and Shantanu Maharaj, and second is Vichitra Virya, who was born out of Satyavati and Maharaj Shantanu. So Bhishma took a vow of lifelong celibacy, that we are clear. And Vichitravirya, due to some special circumstances, he was not able to beget children out of his two wives, and his two wives were Ambika and Ambalika. And subsequently, Satyavati requested the favor of her elder son, basically, who was son of her co-wife, Ganges, Bhishma, to beget children in the wombs of wives of Vichitravirya, which he denied, which he basically did not accept this proposal because of his vow of celibacy. Subsequently, Satyavati took favor of Vyasadeva, who was her son from Parashara Muni, to beget children in the tombs of these two queens of Vichitravirya. And so is the context clear now, Mataji? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And subsequently, we see that Vyasadeva, because of his external appearance, bodily appearance, it was not very pleasing to the sight. As a result, Ambika, Ambalika, and subsequently the maid servant of Maharaj Vichitravirya, they conceived children from Vyasadeva. And Ambika, because she became very pale during the union, the child born was also not very strong, and he also was like a pale child. And Pandu was born out of Ambika and Vyasadeva. And Ambalika, she closed her eyes, and as a result, the child was born blind, who was Dhritarashtra. And basically, Bhishmadev and Satyavati, they were asking these queens that how did it go, like whether their prayojan is successful. And when they heard that Ambika went pale, Ambalika she closed her eyes, they wanted one more child who would be competent. But Ambika was too afraid to go, and she sent her maid servant. I forgot the name of the maid servant, out of whose union with Vyasadeva, Vidura was born. So Vidura was, that's why called Dasi Putra. He was the son of Vyasadeva from the maid servant of Vichitravirya. So although he was fully competent in terms of his intelligence, in terms of his qualities, because him being born from a maid servant, he was not entitled to inherit the kingdom or the wealth. So now we proceed. Why did Yamaraj have to take birth as Vidura, as the son of a maid servant? So what was the context? Hare Krishna, Ishwari Murari Priya Mataji, please.
Hare Krishna. Once upon a time, the state police caught some thieves who had concealed themselves in the heritage of Manduka Muni. The police constables, as usual, arrested all the thieves and Manduka Muni along with them. The magistrate specifically punished the Muni to death by being pierced with the lance. When he was just to be pierced, the news reached the king, and he at once stopped the act on consideration of his being a great Muni. The king personally begged the Muni's pardon for the mistake of his men, and saint at once went to Yamaraja, who prescribes the destiny of the living beings. Yamaraja, being questioned by the Muni, replied that the Muni in his childhood pierced an ant with a sharpened straw, and for that reason he was put into difficulty. The Muni thought it unwise on the part of Yamaraja that he was punished for his childish innocence, and thus the Muni cursed Yamaraja to become a Shudra. And this Shudra incarnation of Yamaraja was known as Vidura, the Shudra brother of Dhritarashtra and Maharaja Pandu. But this Shudra son of the Kuru dynasty was equally treated by Bhishma Deva, along with his other nephews. And in due course, Vidura was married with a girl who was also born in the womb of Shudrani by a Brahmana. Although Vidura did not inherit the property of his father, the brother of Bhishma Deva, still he was given sufficient state property by Dhritarashtra, the elder brother of Vidura. Vidura was very much attached to his elder brother, and all along he tried to guide him on the right path. During the fratricidal war of Kurukshetra, Vidura repeatedly implored his elder brother to do justice to the sons of Pandu. But Duryodhana did not like such interference by his uncle, and thus he practically insulted Vidura. This resulted in Vidura's leaving home for pilgrimage and taking instruction from Maitreya.
Thank you, Mataji. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So we see that having such an exalted brother, a pure devotee of the Lord, was a blessing for Dhritarashtra. However, till now, he could not fully take benefit of this association of a pure devotee because of his blind attachment towards his own son, Duryodhana, to the extent that Vidura had cautioned Dhritarashtra right when Duryodhana was an infant child, that this child, if you pester and pamper, will be the cause of the destruction of the Kuru race, so you better abandon. And subsequently, even if as a father he couldn't abandon, he was not able to correct the wrongdoings of of Duryodhana, which were visible right from the beginning of his life in terms of Duryodhana's envy towards Pandavas. And Vidura time and again counseled Dhritarashtra on this, but because of the blind attachment, Dhritarashtra could never hear these instructions or accept them. And as a result, what happened? As a result, in front of his own eyes, while he was still living, Dhritarashtra had to witness the killing of all hundreds of his sons because of his negligence of the instructions of Vidura. But finally, we see that how Vidura, although having been insulted and ignored by his elder brother and nephews, out of his causeless mercy, he is still coming at the end for the deliverance of his elder brother, Dhritarashtra. So we will proceed how it happens. Please stop me, Prabhuji's, Mataji's, because there are a lot of characters who are being mentioned. But main point is why did Vidura come back to, and how did he salvage Dhritarashtra, who was definitely going down the drain to hellish conditions had Vidura not saved him. So we'll proceed with text 2. Hare Krishna. Any devotee would like to recite the verse? 1 second. Lalita Vinodini Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Yavata kritavan prashnan
Yavata kritavan prashnan
shata kausharabagrataah
Shata Kausharyavagataha
Jataika bhaktir govinde
Jataki Bhaktir Govinde
Tebhyaschopara Ramah.
Tebhyaschopara Ramaha.
Shall I read the translation?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. After asking various questions and becoming established in the transcendental loving service of Lord Krishna, Vidura retired from putting questions to Maitreya Muni. Shall I continue, Purport?
Yes.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vidura retired from putting questions before Maitreya Muni when he was convinced by Maitreya Rishi that the summum bonum of life is to be finally situated in the transcendental loving service of Lord Shri Krishna, who is Govinda, or one who satisfies his devotees in all respects. Shall I continue full or only the highlight?
Continue full, Mataji.
The conditioned soul, the living being in material existence, seeks happiness by employing his senses in the modes of materialism, but that cannot give him satisfaction. He then searches after the supreme truth by the empiric, philosophic, speculative method and intellectual feats. But if he does not find the ultimate goal, he again goes down to material activities and engages himself in various philanthropic and altruistic works, which all fail to give him satisfaction. So neither fruitive activities nor dry philosophical speculation can give one satisfaction, because by nature a living being is the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, and all the Vedic literatures give him direction towards that ultimate end. The Bhagavad Gita 15.15 confirms this statement. Like Vidura, an inquisitive conditional soul must approach a bona fide spiritual master like Maitreya, and by intelligent inquiries must try to know everything about karma, that is fruitive activities, jnana, that is philosophical research for the supreme truth, and yoga, the linking process of spiritual realization.
Yeah, yes, we'll take a pause here. So here Srila Prabhupada is explaining how Vidura learnt about all these various processes from his discussions, inquiry from Maitreya Maharshi. So we discussed briefly the background of Vidura meeting Maitreya Maharshi. Are there any lessons, Prabhuji's, Mataji's? I don't know whether have you heard about Vidura's discussion with Maitreya Maharshi earlier, but can you think of any lessons that we can learn from Vidura meeting Maitreya Maharshi and taking instructions from him? Can we think of from those devotees who have earlier heard this conversation about this discussion? So specific question is what we can learn from Vidura's discussion with Maitreya Maharshi.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Adidev Prabhu. Yes, Prabhuji.
He asked submissively.
Yes, he asked submissively. So very important point. Background to this discussion, we see that Srimad Bhagavatam itself admits that in terms of the spiritual stature, in terms of the level of advanced consciousness, Vidura was definitely on a higher platform in terms of spiritual realization compared to Maitreya Maharshi. He was a pure devotee of the Lord, the son of Vyasadeva. These qualifications have been acknowledged by Maitreya Maharshi himself. Still, Vidura took a subordinate position, humble position of submitting himself and his inquiries to Maitreya Maharshi. He did not feel any less in that. Originally, if we see who was the personality who Lord Krishna had entrusted his instructions, message for Vidura. Who did Lord Krishna pass that message to?
Uddhava Prabhuji.
Uddhava. But Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd Canto explains that because of the etiquette, because of not transgressing the etiquette of Maryada Vyatikram, that means a senior devotee is present and we should not disrespect the seniority of that devotee and ourselves start speaking. Vidura was guided by Uddhava to go to Maitreya Maharshi near Badrikashram and inquire from him, from Maitreya Maharshi, the message about Lord Krishna. So Vidura's submission to Maitreya Maharshi is the first point that we can learn. And we saw that how Vidura was a pure devotee on a higher status of spiritual realization than Maitreya Maharshi, who was earlier a Jnani. He became a devotee of the Lord because of the association of Lord Krishna and pure devotee Uddhava. Before that, he was a Jnani. But still, Vidura accepted him as at a higher level. Anything else, Prabhuji's, Mataji's?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Ishwari Murari.
I guess for us learning is whenever we go for pilgrimage or yatra, we have to listen to senior sannyasis.
Yes, very nice. In fact, there is a very nice verse, Srila Prabhupada used to quote it very often in this regard. Let me see if I can find out. Not yes, yes. What is that verse? Sasti Trunapeti. Is Aishwarya Subhadra Mataji or Ananda Vilas Prabhu, do you recollect that verse? यस्यास्ति बुद्धि तृणपेति धातुके स्वधिक कलत्रा दिशु बहुम इज्जति यतीर्थ बुद्धि कलिलेन सरिचित जनेषु अभिज्ञेषु स एव गोकरः. Let us just. So in that Prabhupada says, yes. So in this verse, Srimad Bhagavatam says that one who goes to the place of pilgrimage just to take holy bath there without bothering to hearing from the pure devotees about the glories of that holy place, such a person is no better than an ass or a cow. That means he is very ignorant. Yeah. So rather than hearing from those great souls about the benefits of visiting that holy places, the spiritual significance of that holy place, the person is just interested in taking bath there to get relief from the sins. Such a person is no better than an cow or a ass, a donkey. So Vidura, we see that he was very interested in hearing from a sadhu, not just purifying himself. Thank you, Ishwari Murari Priya Mataji. Any other lesson? And second thing, we also see that he, although at a very advanced level of Krishna consciousness, he presented himself in a very humble state, asking right from the topics of creation to establish Lord Krishna's position for common people in general. So he did not say that because I am advanced, let's go to the very higher topics about Lord Krishna. He started from a very basic level of inquiries, which would benefit the common soul, which would benefit everyone. And those topics of discussion between Maitreya Maharshi and Vidura form Canto 3 and onwards, basically. So Shukadev Goswami discussing to Maharaj Parikshit and all the sages, that discussion being referred by Suta Goswami to the sages of Naimisharanya, and Suta Goswami in turn referring to dialogue between Maitreya Maharshi and Vidura. This is how the sequence of discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam is mentioned. And within that discussion, there are again sub discussions like Narada Muni discussing with Maharaj Yudhishthir, so on and so forth. So don't worry about the sequence, but worry about the message. Yes, Lalita Vinodini Mataji, please proceed. One who is.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. One who is not seriously inclined to put questions before a spiritual master need not accommodate a showbottle spiritual master, nor should a person who may be a spiritual master for others pose to be so if he is unable to engage his disciple ultimately in the transcendental loving service of Lord Sri Krishna. Vidura was successful in approaching such a spiritual master like Maitreya, and he got the ultimate goal of life, Bhakti unto Govinda. Thus, there was nothing to be known further about spiritual progress. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So, having gotten this Atma Gatihi, the knowledge about the ultimate destination for a living entity, Vidura has returned home. Some of these verses we will directly go to the purport, the translation, and the characters in the purport we will discuss briefly. Otherwise, it will take very long because these are long purports. But we request all the devotees to thoroughly read through these purports at your leisure at home. Don't skip any in reading and studying. So, who wants to read next? Hare Krishna. Geeta Pradeep Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. The translation, right?
Yes, Mataji.
When they saw Vidura return to the palace, all the inhabitants, Maharaja Yudhishthira, his younger brothers, Dhritarashtra, Satyaki, Sanjaya, Kripacharya, Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, Uttara, Kripi, many other wives of the Kauravas and other ladies with children, all hurried to him in great delight. It is so appeared that they had regained their consciousness after a long period.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
So here we see that all the remaining members of the Kuru dynasty, including the Pandavas, Vidura's own elder brother Dhritarashtra, his sister-in-law Gandhari, and other members who are mentioned, they were also affectionate and fond of Vidura. That they felt that their own life has they have regained their own life, they have regained their own consciousness after a long period of time. Specifically for the Pandavas, it is mentioned that they were raised in a very peculiar circumstances where because of the untimely demise of their father Pandu, they never ever got the fatherly affection which was due to them and which was specifically expected from Dhritarashtra, their own uncle, that he would protect and he would grant them the same love and affection that he would otherwise to his own sons, the Kauravas. In fact, the first verse of Bhagavad Gita starts with Dhritarashtra discriminating between his own children as uh, Kurus and the sons of Pandavas as separate entities. Although Pandavas were also Kurus, they were also children of Kuru dynasty. Somehow Dhritarashtra never gave them that affection. But there were two personalities who were very protective and affectionate to the Pandavas, especially they being the great, because of Pandavas being the greatly religious personalities right from the beginning of their birth. And these two personalities were Prabhuji's Matajis, who were most
Bhishmadeva and Vidura.
Bhishmadeva and
Vidura.
Vidura. So as a result, the Pandavas also were very, very fond of Bhishmadev and Vidura. And we see how greatly aggrieved Yudhishthir Maharaj and the Pandavas were seeing Bhishmadev in that precarious situation with all the arrows pierced in his body during the departure of Bhishmadev. Similarly, in case of Vidura, Yudhishthir and the Pandavas were so attached and so fond of him. They all felt greatly enlivened after the return of Vidura. And the same enlivenment of Pandavas being turned into great grief, we will see when they come to know that Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and Vidura have left the home in the middle of night without any prior notice to them. So this all shows their great affinity, affection towards Vidura as the great devotee as well as their affectionate uncle. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains various personalities who are mentioned here, starting with Gandhari. Now about Gandhari's characteristics and great qualities, we saw Srimad Bhagavatam glorifying Gandhari in chapter 11th, when Lord Krishna was about to depart, where Gandhari is compared to, she was no less than any other great sages because of her main quality of chastity towards her husband. Here also, Srila Prabhupada mentions that when Gandhari came to know that her would-be husband, Dhritarashtra, was going to be a blind man, he was a blind man, she also religiously followed that path to accept voluntary blindness in order to remain chaste. And her qualities are time and again glorified. However, it is explained later on some of the natural frailties what Gandhari had as being a woman. So again, coming back to the point that scriptures caution us both either as a man or as a woman in terms of the strengths, the privileges what each gender possess, as well as the dangers what each gender possess, and how we have to be very, very careful to not be bound in these frailties, in these demerits, and still pursue the path of advancement in Krishna consciousness. So specifically for Gandhari, Srimad Bhagavatam mentions that she had the natural frailties. Frailties means limitations, demerits of a woman, and she became envious of Kunti when Kunti Devi gave birth to Yudhishthir Maharaj as first of her child. So because of Kunti Devi giving birth to Yudhishthir Maharaj, as such Pandu was younger to Dhritarashtra and Kunti Devi was also younger to Gandhari. So they begetting a male child first caused great envy and discomfort in Gandhari. And as a result, while she was carrying child in her own womb, Gandhari basically kicked her own womb, and as a result, the child was born prematurely as a lump of flesh without fully being developed. And subsequently, because Gandhari was also a devotee of Srila Vyasadeva, we see that Vyasadeva carefully cut though that lump of flesh into 100 different pieces, and through the culture what you call test tube BBBC, that in the culture he put all those 100 pieces, and subsequently 100 male children gradually their bodies developed from those 100 pieces made by Vyasadeva out of Gandhari's womb, and that's how the 100 Kauravas came into existence. And subsequently, we do see the glorious qualities of Gandhari also in terms of trying to guide her spiritually and materially blinded husband, Dhritarashtra, against letting the war of Kurukshetra happening. So she asked Dhritarashtra to divide the kingdom between her own children and Pandavas. Basically, Pandavas were such glorious personalities. They were content even with granting 5 villages for the 5 Pandava brothers. But she desired that the kingdom be divided between her sons and Pandavas, and so that both would live peacefully. Dhritarashtra never attended to her good counsel and had Duryodhana's way go forward. And subsequently, as natural for a mother, when she had all her 100 children killed in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Gandhari naturally was very upset, and she wanted to basically curse Bhimasen and Yudhishthir, but was subsequently again protected by Vyasadeva through good counsel. And subsequently, these details you can read through how she, as a natural mother, was very pitiful in her lamentation in front of Lord Krishna upon the loss of her children, and also upon seeing the death of Karna, seeing the lamentation of Karna's wife. She was very, very pitiful and lamenting. So these two personalities, if we compare, Gandhari, she also having some of these natural frailties, some of these natural attachments and demerits. And Dhritarashtra also possessing these demerits. But the difference is, while Gandhari was attentive to the good counsel of Vyasadeva, we see Dhritarashtra failed to take benefit of the good counsel of Vidura. That is the difference between these two. As a result, we see Gandhari was protected at least from some of the further fall downs which would have happened if she were to curse Bhimasen, Yudhishthir, these great devotees. But for Dhritarashtra, we see that the fall downs were much more. But finally, all is well that ends well because of the mercy of Vidura, both got salvation. So that part will come to. So here it is mentioned. She was pacified by Srila Vyasadeva when she showed her dead sons, then promoted to the heavenly kingdoms. That means even the Kauravas getting a higher destination of being promoted to the heavenly planets. When she came to know of it, she was pacified that they got a higher destination. And then she, along with her husband, Dhritarashtra, died in the jungles of Himalayas near the mouth of the Ganges. She burnt in a forest fire. And Maharaj Yudhishthir personally performed the death ceremony of his uncle and aunt. So Queen Kunti we have discussed earlier, so we won't go much into detail. We have discussed her story earlier on. And we also studied about how when Yudhishthir Maharaj along with the Pandava brothers went to Panchala Desha, attended the Swayamvara ceremony, which was specifically won on the competence of Arjuna. And when Arjuna brought Draupadi back, before even looking at what Arjuna had brought, basically Arjuna told Arjuna told Kunti Devi that he has got a gift for her. And Kunti Devi, without even seeing what was that gift, mentioned to Arjuna that divide it amongst 5 of you brothers and amongst yourself. And then Draupadi became the wife of all the Pandava brothers on the ask of Kunti Devi. And subsequently for Kunti Devi, it is explained that how, as a natural affectionate mother, she also lamented the death of her own first child, Karna, after his death. She explained the whole story to Yudhishthir Maharaj. And Yudhishthir Maharaj was not very happy coming to know about it at a later stage. He basically chastised Kunti Devi in a way that why didn't you tell this before? We could have given the whole kingdom. But then Krishna interfered and told that he had personally tried to convince Karna to come on the side of Pandavas before the battle, but Karna's intelligence did not allow it. So this is the background. We proceed. For Draupadi Devi, Hare Krishna, P.S. Murthy Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, can I just add?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, I just I chanced upon the original text from Mahabharata directly. And Prabhu, there is a common understanding that she is the wife of all the 5 brothers. Whereas in the Mahabharata, she is not the wife of all the 5. It is clearly said there that she is the wife of Yudhishthir. And it gives that, it says how she was won by Arjuna and how she became the wife of Yudhishthir. And when Yudhishthir pledged her in the gamble, why did the 4 other brothers kept quiet? It was clearly said, if it says that if she was the wife of all the 4 brothers also, they would have sat silently. It is clearly said that she is the wife of only Yudhishthira and not all the 5 brothers. as is a common understanding.
Yes, Prabhu. So we'll keep this simple. We will go with what the Srimad Bhagavatam has to say in terms of how she was obtained, how she was gained by Arjuna's competence, and how subsequently Kunti Devi had her shared by all the Pandava brothers. We'll keep it simple because, to be honest, that particular reference I have not seen. And even if it does exist, if there are any apparent contradictions, Srimad Bhagavatam as Amalam Puranam will have the supersedence over anything else. So for this discussion, we'll keep it simple to this purport, Prabhuji. Okay? Hare Krishna. Any other devotees have any questions before we proceed? All right. So next glorious description is given of Draupadi, who is also known as Panchali because of the being born as the princess of the king of Panchala. And here it is mentioned Draupadi as a partial incarnation of goddess Sachi, the wife of Indra. So in this regard, we have discussed some time back, Prabhuji's Mataji's, that these incarnations, don't get it confused. Incarnation doesn't mean that Sachi Devi herself has appeared as Draupadi. We discussed that how all these great personalities, they are the Nitya Parichara, they are the eternal associates of the Lord in the spiritual world. And when they come to this material world, they also inherit sometimes the mood of a specific personalities. So that's how we can learn. It doesn't mean that Draupadi, she is a eternal spiritual personality in the spiritual world. Then how can she incarnate as the as the better half, as the expansion of the better half of Indra, which is a post basically, and Indra as well as his wife Sachi are in the material world. So don't get confused. Draupadi still is an eternal personality. These personalities sometimes take the mood or partial mood of any personality in this world. So don't get confused. They are all pure devotees eternally. So we proceed. Draupadi, similar to her own mother-in-law Kunti Devi, is glorified in Srimad Bhagavatam as a very, very qualified lady, both in terms of her beauty as well as in terms of her glorious qualities. How she protected her husbands from great calamities, sometimes including when Durvasa Muni visited the Pandavas during their exile in the forest. So that is being referred to, and how this great queen Draupadi, a pure devotee of the Lord, she begot various children from all the 5 Pandava brothers. So their names are mentioned. You can go through at your leisure. Important point, Draupadi is described as a most beautiful lady equal to her mother-in-law, Queen Kunti. So this you can proceed. And it is explained that she was also such a chaste lady that when Pandavas renounced everything after coming to know of the departure of Lord Krishna for uh, for Goloka Vrindavan, for him departing to Godhead, she, along with the Pandavas, along with the Kunti Devi, immediately denounced everything, handed over the kingdom to Parikshit, and left towards north. At the last stage, she accompanied her husband Yudhishthir and others and fell on the way. The cause of her falling was explained by Yudhishthir, but when Yudhishthir entered the heavenly planet, he saw Draupadi gloriously present there as a goddess of fortune in the heavenly planet. So again, don't get confused with either Draupadi or Yudhishthir Maharaj going to heaven. We discussed this point earlier, that this destination was an in-between destination before they went back home, back to Godhead. Even more tricky to understand is Yudhishthir Maharaj for a moment having to witness even the hellish planet. So we discussed this point earlier. We won't go further into detail. Next, Srimad Bhagavatam talks about Subhadra Devi, who was the daughter of Vasudev and younger sister of Lord Krishna. So Subhadra subsequently, Arjuna desired to marry her, and Balaramji, Lord Krishna's elder brother, had plans of marrying her to Duryodhan. But Krishna, not wanting to go against his elder brother, he arranged for Arjuna to kidnap Subhadra Devi, and from Arjuna and Subhadra, Abhimanyu was born. And we see that how Abhimanyu himself died on the battle of Kurukshetra in front of Lord Krishna on the 9th day. How Arjuna lamented, and we also discussed during Bhakti Shastri discussion that being related to Lord Krishna either in blood relations or in bhakti doesn't mean that we will not have to encounter difficulties. We won't have to encounter difficult situations in this life. Like we see, Lord Krishna's own real sister, Subhadra, had to bear the loss of her son in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. His pure devotee Arjuna had to bear the loss of his son. But subsequently, they all basically perfected their lives. And Subhadra Mai is also mentioned in the story of Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. Srila Prabhupada also refers to that in recollection of that particular pastime of Subhadra, Jagannathji and Baladev taking this amazing form amazing form of being into ecstasy, where their limbs contracted and their eyes widened. They had a broad smile on their face. And Narada Muni saw this vision of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, and he proclaimed, I saw it, I saw it. And they came to their external consciousness. And subsequently, these deity forms of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra being worshipped in Jagannath Puri. Srila Prabhupada refers to that. You can go through at your leisure. At the premature death of Abhimanyu, Subhadra was very mortified. But on the birth of Maharaj Parikshit, she was very happy and solaced. Hare Krishna, Shama Gopika Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Just wanted to know because Subhadra Mai is not a Jiva Tattva, right?
Yes, so
She's
I
Yogamaya.
think I realized that particular point when I mentioned they perfected. So when I said they perfected, it is Arjuna, but she is eternally sister related to Lord Krishna. She is not Jiva Tattva.
Okay.
She's considered as specifically in Kirtan we hear that Yashoda Nandana Jai Jagannath Yoga Maya Jai Subhadra. So she is considered as the Yoga Maya potency of the Lord, Subhadra Mai. And who is considered Mahamaya potency?
Durga Devi.
Durga Devi, yes. So Durga Devi is the Mahamaya potency which specifically acts on the conditioned soul, and Subhadra Mai is considered as Yoga Maya potency which acts on all the devotees, pure devotee. Hare Krishna. Any other questions, comments, Prabhuji's, Mataji's? Hare Krishna. Okay. Noted. Yes, thank you for quoting that verse number. Yasyasti bhaktir kunapetri dhatuk. Yasyasti, not bhaktir. Yasyatma buddhi. All right, let's proceed. So then all these remaining members of the Kuru family, they approach Vidura. So here we proceed again. Anybody would like to read through Hare Krishna, Prabhuji's, Mataji's?
May I do it?
Jagadananda Murari Prabhu. Yes, Prabhuji.
Translation, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, translation. With great delight, they all approached him as if life had returned to their bodies. They exchanged obeisances and welcomed each other with embraces. Purport. In the absence of consciousness, the limbs of the body remain inactive. But when consciousness returns, the limbs and senses become active and existence itself becomes delightful. Vidura was so dear to the members of the Kaurava family that his long absence from the palace was comparable to inactivity. All of them were feeling acute separation from Vidura, and therefore his return to the palace was joyful for all.
Yes, but 1 second. Yeah, proceed with the translation. Due to
Due to anxieties and long separation, they all cried out of affection. King Yudhishthira then arranged to offer sitting accommodations and a reception.
Next.
After Vidura ate sumptuously and took sufficient rest, he was comfortably seated. Then the king began to speak to him, and all who were present there listened. Purport. King Yudhishthira was expert in reception also, even in the case of his family members. Vidura was well received by all the family members by exchange of embraces and obeisances. After that, bathing and arrangements for the sumptuous dinner was made, and then he was given sufficient rest. After finishing his rest, he was offered a comfortable place to sit, and then the king began to talk about all happenings, both family and otherwise. That is a proper way to receive a beloved friend or even an enemy. According to Indian moral codes, even an enemy received at home should be so well received that he will not feel any fearful situation. An enemy is always afraid of his enemy, but this should not be so when he is received at home by his enemy. This means that a person, when received at home, should be treated as a relative. So what to speak of a family member like Vidura, who was a well-wisher for all the members of the family. Thus, Yudhishthira Maharaj began to speak in the presence of all other members.
Thank you, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we see that how this culture of receiving a guest we saw even in the earlier chapter about how we should receive a guest at home, that even an enemy comes, he forgets that he has come to an enemy's house. And we see that this culture being prevalent even at the time of Mahabharata, when Duryodhan received Arjun so graciously after the battle, when he went to ask for those 5 arrows, to the extent that Duryodhan asked Arjun that, do you want me to stop the war? Do you want me to give you the kingdom? He was even willing to please his guest by offering all what he was very much attached to. But Arjuna, being a true Kshatriya, did not ask for that. He asked for what Lord Krishna had asked him to ask for. And coming back to Vidura, we see that while his brief background is mentioned in what we discussed, his detailed background and his inquiries is also mentioned in 3rd Canto, chapter 1, specifically text 10 till 18th. So let me see if there is any other point which we missed in our discussion. Jagadananda Prabhu, can you just read the translation from 10th onwards?
Yeah. When Vidura was invited by his elder brother Dhritarashtra for consultation, he entered the house and gave instructions which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and instructions by Vidura are approved by expert ministers of state. Vidura said, "You must now return the legitimate share to Yudhishthira, who has no enemies and who has been forbearing through untold sufferings due to your offenses. He is waiting with his younger brothers, among whom is the revengeful Bhima, breathing heavily like a snake. Surely you are afraid of him. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, has accepted the sons of Pritha as his kinsmen, and all the kings of the world are with Lord Sri Krishna. He is present in his home with all his family members, the kings and princes of the Yadu dynasty, who have conquered an unlimited number of rulers, and he is their lord. You are maintaining offense personified Duryodhana as your infallible son, but he is envious of Lord Krishna. And because you are thus maintaining a non-devotee of Krishna, you are devoid of all auspicious qualities. Relieve yourself of all this ill fortune as soon as possible and do good to the whole family." While speaking thus, Vidura, whose personal character was esteemed by respectable persons, was insulted by Duryodhana, who was swollen with anger and whose lips were trembling. Duryodhana was in company with Karna, his younger brothers, and his maternal uncle Shakuni, who asked him to come here, this son of a kept mistress. He is so crooked that he spies in the interest of the enemy against those on whose support he has grown up. Toss him out of the palace immediately and leave him with only his breath. Thus, being pierced by arrows through his ears and afflicted to the core of his heart, Vidura placed his bow on the door and quit his brother's palace. He was not sorry, for he considered the acts of an external energy to be supreme. By his piety, Vidura achieved the advantages of pious Kauravas. After leaving Hastinapur, he took shelter of many places of pilgrimages, which are the Lord's lotus feet. With a desire to gain a higher order of pious life, he traveled to holy places where thousands of transcendental forms of the Lord are situated. He began to travel alone, thinking only of Krishna, through various holy places like Ayodhya, Dwaraka, and Mathura. He traveled where the grove hill, orchard, river, and lake are all pure and sinless, and where the forms of the unlimited decorate the temples. Thus, he performed the pilgrim's progress. While
Thank you, Prabhuji. So yeah. So we see the Vidura's background mentioned in great detail in series of verses, uh, giving the background of his discussion with Maitreya Maharshi. So now this will be the verse we'll discuss in detail, and it will be the last verse for today's discussion. I've not gotten a chance to discuss further. This is an important verse, text 8. So
I've got a
Prema
question,
Priya.
Prabhuji. I've got a question, Prabhuji.
Yes,
If
Mataji.
Duryodhana was not magnanimous and he had the courtesies to offer kingdom to Arjuna, why in the first place did the Kurukshetra war happen at all? He could have done that in the beginning itself, no, Prabhuji?
Yes,
No?
very true. If Duryodhan was that graceful in offering the kingdom, that grace was more as a culture in receiving the guest, Mataji. But that culture was not truly a magnanimity in origin. Like it was because Arjuna had approached him as a guest in the evening after the battle of Kurukshetra. That was done as a normal culture. It was not truly, because if that attachment was missing, Srimad Bhagavatam or these great scriptures like Bhagavatam, Mahabharata, they keep mentioning that from the very beginning of his life, he was envious towards the Pandavas, and both he as well as his father, Dhritarashtra, they wanted to usurp the entire kingdom for their own self without giving anything. So this was not, attachment to the kingdom was inherent in Duryodhana, just that culture of receiving the guest, he showed that magnanimity.
So that duality in their behavior, that duality in their behavior, Prabhuji.
Come again, duality, yeah.
Duality.
Basically, yeah, the context is different. So in the original sense, he was definitely attached to enjoying everything and was basically had great envy and hatred towards Pandava. But the subsequent courtesy granted to Arjuna was just to follow the norms of receiving a guest.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
The real magnanimity we see is in the life of Yudhishthir, like we discussed last time during Yaksha's quiz, when he had an opportunity just to revive, who to revive first, as Mataji mentioned, he first chose children of Madri. That for Kunti, at least she has me, but for my other mother, Madri, there is not a single of her children who would be alive. So that is real magnanimity.
Yes.
For Duryodhana's case, it was more of a custom, the norm.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Nityangi Prema Siya Devi Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
You want to read through or you have any question?
No, Prabhuji, I want to read.
Read through. Okay, fine. So you can recite the verse, text 8.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. Yudhishthira Uvacha.
Yudhishthira Uvacha.
Api smaratano yushmat.
Api smaratano yushmat.
Pakshayasa.
Pakshachaya.
Pakshachaya samhita.
पक्षछाया समेधितान्
विषाज्ञा देवो
विपद्गणाद् विषाग्नादेः मोचितायत् समातृकाः
मोचितायत् समाहृताः. Translation.
Yes, Prabhu. Maharaja Yudhishthira said, "My uncle, do you remember how you always protected us, along with our mother, from all sorts of calamities? You, partially like the wings of a bird, saved us from poisoning and arisen."
So here Yudhishthir Maharaj is formally acknowledging how these great souls like Vidura, because of the piety and religiosity of the Pandavas, because of they being great devotees of the Lord from very beginning of their birth, they were always very protective towards the Pandavas, and even it was felt by Maharaj Yudhishthir as if they were partial in terms of protecting Pandavas from so many calamities. Yes, Mataji, purport. Please unmute yourself, Nityangi Mataji. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Due to Pandava's death at an early age, his minor children and widow.
Pandu's death.
Sorry, Prabhuji. Due to Pandava's death at an early age, his minor children and widow were the object of special care by all the elderly members of the family, especially Bhishma Deva and Mahatma Vidura. Vidura was more or less partial to the Pandavas due to their political position. Although Dhritarashtra was equally careful for the minor children of Maharaja Pandu, he was one of the intriguing parties who wanted to wash away the descendants of Pandu and replace them by releasing his own sons to become the rulers of the kingdom. Mahatma Vidura could follow this intrigue of Dhritarashtra and company, and therefore, even though he was a faithful servant of his elder brother, Dhritarashtra, he did not like his political ambition for the.
Sorry, Mataji, apologies. Is it only me who is having breaking?
No, we were not able to hear
No
that.
problem.
Yeah. So,
Breaking.
Mataji, is it okay if we have somebody who has a good connection? Okay,
Sorry,
otherwise it's difficult to concentrate.
Sorry,
Can
Prabhu.
I take Prabhu?
Lalita, sorry,
Hare Krishna. Devika.
Devika Mataji, yes, Mataji, please proceed. Mahatma Vidur could follow.
1 second, Prabhu. Where is it? Okay. Mahatma Vidura could follow this intrigue of Dhritarashtra and company, and therefore, even though he was a faithful servitor of his eldest brother Dhritarashtra, he did not like his political ambition for the sake of his own sons. He was therefore very careful about the protection of the Pandavas and their widow mother. Thus, he was, so to speak, partial to the Pandavas, preferring them to the sons of Dhritarashtra, although both of them were equally affectionate in his ordinary eyes. He was equally affectionate to both the camps of nephews in the sense that he always chastised Duryodhana for his intriguing policy against his cousins. He always criticized his elder brother for his policy of engagement to his sons, and at the same time, he was always alert in giving special protection to the Pandavas. All these different activities of Vidura within the palace politics made him well known as partial to the Pandavas. Maharaja Yudhishthira has referred to the past history of Vidura before his going away from home for prolonged pilgrim's journey. Maharaja Yudhishthira reminded him that he was equally kind and partial to his grown-up nephews, even after the battle of Kurukshetra, a great family disaster.
Before the battle of Kurukshetra, Dhritarashtra's policy was peaceful annihilation of his nephews, and therefore he ordered Purochana
Purochana.
to build a house of lac at Varanavat. And when the building was finished, Dhritarashtra decided that his brother's family live there for some time. When the Pandavas were going there in the presence of all the members of the royal family, Vidura tactfully gave instruction to the Pandavas about the future plan of Dhritarashtra. This is specifically described in the Mahabharata Adi Parva 144. He indirectly hinted, even a weapon not made of steel or any other material element can be more than sharp enough to kill an enemy, and he who knows this is never killed. That is to say, he hinted that the party of the Pandavas was being sent to Varanaratta to be killed, and thus he warned Yudhishthira to be very careful in their new residential palace. He also gave indication of fire and said that fire cannot extinguish the soul but can annihilate the material body. But one who protects the soul can live. Kunti could not follow such indirect conversation between Maharaja Yudhishthira and Vidura. And thus, when she inquired from her son about the purport of the conversation, Yudhishthira replied that from the talks of Vidura, it was understood that there was a hint of fire in the house where they were proceeding. Later on, Vidura came in disguise to the Pandavas and informed them that the housekeeper was going to set fire to the house on the 14th night of the waning moon. It was an intrigue of Dhritarashtra that the Pandavas might die all together with their mother. And by his warning, the Pandavas escaped through the tunnel underneath the earth, so that their escape was also unknown to the Dhritarashtra, so much so that after setting the fire, the Kauravas were so certain of the death of the Pandavas that Dhritarashtra performed the last rites of death with great cheerfulness. And during the morning period, all the members of the palace became overwhelmed with lamentation. But Vidura did not become so, because of his knowledge that Pandavas were alive somewhere. There are many such instances of calamities, and in each of them, Vidura gave protection to the Pandavas on one hand, and on the other, he tried to restrain his brother Dhritarashtra from such intriguing policies. Therefore, he was always partial to the Pandavas, just as a bird protects its egg by its wing. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, specifically, we will conclude today. We saw in today's discussion the background of Vidura, how he is a great personality inheriting the qualities right from his own father, Srila Vyasadeva. He is Yamaraj himself, who took birth as the son of a maidservant because of the curse of Manduka Muni. And we also discussed some of the learnings on a very high level in terms of Vidura submitting himself to Maitreya Maharshi despite being on a higher status of spiritual realization than Maitreya Maharshi, and subsequently inquiring from Maitreya Maharshi about the topics of Sarga, Visarga, the primary and secondary creation, which are preliminary to understanding Lord Krishna's position. And then in subsequent discussion next time, we will come to the crux of this particular chapter, which is Vidura's instructions to Dhritarashtra. So basically, more than the instructions, if we see exact verses later on in the next discussion, we will see that Vidura is literally scolding, chastising Dhritarashtra by saying that, my dear elder brother, feel at least some shame that you are staying at the favor of your own nephew, who you have tried to destroy so many times in their lives, to the extent that Dhritarashtra even tried to kill Bhimasen after the battle of Kurukshetra. So he said, you are staying at their mercy exactly like a dog is put some food by the master and the dog remains happy and obliged. So he literally chastised Dhritarashtra in order to build the spirit of required renunciation in him. And finally, when Dhritarashtra, Gandhari were ready, they left Pandava's palace in the middle of the night. And Vidura guided his own elder brother and sister-in-law towards perfection in their life at the last stage. So this is a very, very important instruction of Vidura chastising Dhritarashtra. And one time, a particular devotee's own grandfather, basically, he was a very old man and he was on the deathbed. Everybody knew that because of the advanced age, this person is soon going to pass away. And at his deathbed, basically, this devotee who was the grandchild of this dying man, he went with Bhagavatam, wanting to help his grandfather, hear about Lord Krishna, take up Krishna consciousness, at least at the fag end of his life, and get benefited. And the particular section this devotee chose to narrate to his dying father-in-law was this section of Vidura chastising Dhritarashtra, that how he was living at the mercy of Yudhishthir, who he himself tried to kill so many times. So this is so shameful, and he should have some self-respect, dignity, not to depend on Pandavas and renounce this house, like this homely comfort. So his father was so angry, this devotee's father, that my father is dying, and this devotee is describing about Vidura chastising Dhritarashtra, that you are living just like a dog who is being put food by the master and who is so attached to that food. But the grandfather was very grateful. He said, what the grandchild is reading is very true, and let him continue and don't disturb him, what he is describing. So the point is, these instructions are really for our benefit. Sometimes that realization, it takes a particular context of the living entity's living condition for him or her to realize the importance of those instructions. But if we realize this just based on the words of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is like learning from first class source. We discussed last time, first class person is one who learns by hearing, second class one who learns by seeing, third class one who learns by experiencing, and fourth class don't learn even by experiencing. So we'll conclude our discussion. My apologies, we could not have much group activities because I did not want to skip these verses which set the scene for Vidura's discussion with Dhritarashtra, his chastisement basically. I did not want to jump to that section directly. Is there any questions, queries, comments, Matajis, Prabhujis, based on what we discussed today? Hare Krishna. So let me share the link for attendance. Okay.
Prabhuji, this is chapter 13, no, not chapter 12.
Yeah, this is a mistake, spelling mistake.
Okay, Prabhuji.
I'll
Yeah.
correct.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Rohini Mataji, can you share the link? Rohini Mataji, you're still there?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. She is already posted, Prabhu, in the big
Okay, fine. So usually we will make it a point to share the link in the end, Prabhuji's, Mataji's. Okay. So if there is no other question, comment, see as many of you as possible in Mangalore on the weekend of 17th, 18th for the inauguration of the temple. And I will try my level best. I have to see the schedule there because it will be very busy, obviously. All devotees preparing for the inauguration, which is on 19th. But if the schedule and the circumstances permit, we will still have discussion from Mangalore. So let us see how it goes.
Hare Krishna. Next week is 11th, no, Prabhu. We have class, no?
Yeah, we will have class. Specifically for the weekend of 17, 18, I will try my level best based on circumstances in Mangalore.
Sure.
Okay. Prabhu, next week will be the re-exam for those who have not appeared on.
Yes, Mataji. Okay, so we'll stop here. Vamsha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki Jai, Vaishnav Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.